What's up, X-Men fans? It's John of Video Games in the World, and today is the day, people. X-Men 97 has just premiered, and so far I am really enjoying this. I'm truly happy that they have the same costumes from the 90s and the same drawing styles, almost. And I was so ecstatic to see this classic being brought back. Something that I loved watching as a child, and now that I am an adult, I feel like a kid watching this. As a person born in the 80s and raised in the 90s, I can say that many of us who enjoyed this old cartoon can also love this cartoon as well. This is exactly how you bring back the classics by respecting the originals, introducing brand new stuff, and then pass it on to a new generation. I know that a lot of people feel that this cartoon is not going to live up to the spirit of the 1990s cartoon because it wouldn't live up to it. Well, if you feel that way, then at least give it a try. Now, if you're someone who complains that it's gonna be woke, then I got bad news for you. Since the first comic in the 1960s, X-Men was always woke. Not happy about that? Get over it. Stan Lee created X-Men as a story that deals with bigotry, prejudice, and civil rights, and that's exactly what X-Men is about, fighting against bigotry and for civil rights, and seeing the good in people. So today the first two episodes of this cartoon premiered, and they were fantastic. So right now we're going to talk about these first two episodes titled, To Me, My X-Men, and Mutant Liberation Begins. Now, I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible because there's lots of things that happen in these first two episodes, and I do mean a lot. Episode 1 is titled, To Me, My X-Men. So we open up a year after the death of the mentor of the X-Men, Professor Charles Xavier. He was assassinated by a former CIA agent, Henry Gyrick, who is opposed to mutant rights. Ever since that time, sympathy for mutant kind has increased. In this episode, we see that Bishop is part of the team and Jean Grey is pregnant. However, despite sympathy for mutants growing, there are those who want to eradicate them. A young Latino mutant named Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot, is saved by the X-Men from the Friends of Humanity, who are now using Sentinel technology as weapons to fight against mutants. Later, an old enemy has arrived to the X-Mansion, which shocks the X-Men with a revelation. So this episode talks about in the beginning how one must learn self-acceptance in the case of Sunspot when he is in the X-Mansion during a conversation with Jubilee. This conversation is like when you are trying to find out who you really are and how you must learn to accept it. People feel shame in showing who they are out of fear of backlash from family and friends. But in the end, one must reveal who they truly are and not bottle it up for too long, because it's extremely harmful and can lead to a dead end. We see that with their child due any day, Cyclops and Jean debate about leaving the X-Men while wondering who will take the position of leadership now that Xavier is gone. The burden of leadership can be really tough, since you have to guide and work with your teammates. We can see that Wolverine, much like in the original cartoon, has some unrequited feelings for Jean, but she's still with Cyclops, much to his bitter jealousy. Being in love with a woman you like while she's with someone else can be pretty painful. Trust me, I know how that feels. Seeing the Friends of Humanity again reminded me so much of the old cartoon. For those who don't know about them, the Friends of Humanity are an extremist anti-mutant hate group that was formed when a group of mutant haters felt betrayed by Senator Kelly for switching from anti-mutant views to pro-mutant views after the X-Men saved his life. And now, in this cartoon, they're getting dangerous, a lot more dangerous. Some old faces are seen again, and we learn that Charles Xavier left everything in this world to someone that the X-Men were not truly expecting it to be. This is going to be a redemption arc right there. The next episode is Mutant Liberation Begins. This episode is about the fight for mutants to be accepted and how such a fight can be very costly because there's always someone willing and able to ruin everything and keep all the hate and bigotry still alive and the same. Magneto has been chosen by Charles Xavier to lead the X-Men now that he is gone, and it's very understandable how Cyclops and the rest of the team don't want him due to the battles they had with him and how he was willing to and able to destroy humanity. What I love about Magneto is that despite his difference of thought to Xavier, he still considers him a friend. So as we can see that this season will have Magneto with a redemption arc now that he is leading the X-Men. Now, Charles Xavier and Magneto had different views. Charles Xavier believed in changing the system, while Magneto believed in burning it all down and making something it much worse than the old system that oppressed the oppressed, causing the oppressed to become oppressors themselves. So while Magneto is facing judgment for his crimes, the Friends of Humanity and their sympathizers begin to wreak havoc, and this will lead to drastic consequences. I'm not going to give away so many details since I'm trying to keep this spoiler free, but the topics that these episodes focus on is tolerance and acceptance. That's exactly what X-Men was always about since the very first issue was released in the 1960s. Because Stan Lee wanted them to be diverse, and the whole underlying principle of X-Men was to try to be an anti-bigotry story to show that there is good in every person. I gotta say also that the action sequences were pretty awesome, and it felt like a mix of the 1990s and today's world. Now, as someone who grew up in the 1990s, many of us who grew up in that decade are now either in our early, mid, or late 30s or early 40s. We can show our kids the beauty of the old cartoon while enjoying this brand new show. My final score for episodes 1 and 2 is a 9 out of 10. That is all for today, everyone. So don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. This is John of Video Games and the World signing off. Have a good one. Bye-bye.